Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's get straight into it today. We're talking about building confidence when you speak English because, you might know your grammar, have a pretty good vocabulary, but then that moment comes to actually speak. And for so many people, that just triggers this wave of nerves.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a common experience, isn't it? A real hurdle for learners.
Yeah.
So today, our mission really is to understand why that speaking anxiety exists, what's behind it, and then, pull out some genuinely useful strategies to help you overcome it. We want to help turn speaking from something, well, intimidating into something that feels empowering for you.
Exactly. And for this, we've been diving into a great conversation from my English podcast. It features Jason and Julia, and they offer some really, really relatable insights and very practical advice. What really stuck with me was their core message. It's not about being perfect, it's about being brave. Simple, but powerful. So let's start there. Why do so many English learners feel like they just freeze up when it's time to speak?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And Jason and Julia pinpointed some really common fears. Obviously, the fear of making mistakes is huge. That's probably number one for many. But then there's also worrying about being laughed at or, simply not being understood at all.
Right.
Or maybe sounding silly or that awful feeling of forgetting words right in the middle of a sentence. So it's a mix of these things.
Totally. And Julia shared this powerful example, didn't she, about a student who was fantastic at written English,
Yes.
but just panicked in conversation.
Yeah.
And the student said something like, and I bet this resonates with a lot of you listening, I feel like I forget everything I've learned the moment I open my mouth.
That really hits home.
It really highlights it's often the fear, not the lack of skill. That's the real barrier.
That's such a crucial distinction Jason and Julia make. Confidence is separate from fluency. You can have a really solid grasp of English, great grammar, lots of words, but still lack that confidence to actually speak easily. So our focus here isn't just about learning more English. It's about feeling comfortable, feeling okay, using the English you already have.
Okay, so we understand these common fears. Let's maybe dig a bit into the psychology of it all. Why does speaking a new language feel so personal, sometimes even kind of scary?
Well, Jason made a really interesting point here. He said, speaking isn't just like reciting words. It's a personal act. You're sharing your thoughts, maybe your feelings, a piece of who you are, your identity. And that vulnerability, that makes it inherently emotional, which explains why those fears can feel so strong.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It's like you're putting a new version of yourself out there. And they also talked about that negative voice inside our heads, right? The inner critic.
Oh, yes, that inner critic, it can be so loud and, frankly, so unhelpful. It's that voice whispering, don't say anything, you'll mess it up. And it really stops people from even trying.
Yeah, it silences you.
And tied into that is the comparison trap, constantly comparing your English to native speakers or maybe friends who seem more fluent.
It's easy to do that online, especially.
Exactly. And it's just so discouraging. It can really kill your motivation and confidence.
Absolutely. And then there's this idea we have to be perfect. The perfection myth, as they called it. Like, if you can't say it flawlessly, don't say it at all.
And Julia just shoots that down so effectively.
Yeah.
She points out, and it's so true, native speakers make mistakes constantly.
We do, all the time.
We use filler words, we pause, we lose our train of thought. Her quote was great. No one speaks perfectly, not even me, and I'm an English teacher.
Yeah, that really helps put things in perspective, doesn't it? It takes the pressure off.
Definitely. It normalizes those little imperfections.
Okay, so we're getting a clearer picture of the anxiety, the emotional side. Now, let's pivot to the practical stuff. What everyone wants, actionable steps. Jason and Julia had some great strategies for actually building confidence. What were some key ones?
Well, one of the biggest ones, I think, is about shifting your focus, mentally shifting gears. So instead of obsessing over making mistakes, try to approach conversations with, like, curiosity.
Curiosity. How so?
Like thinking, what can I learn from this interaction? Framing it as practice, basically, not a test you can fail.
I like that. Practice, not a test. Takes the heat off immediately. Okay, what else? They mentioned something maybe a bit unusual, talking to yourself.
Yeah, talking to yourself daily in English. It sounds a bit odd, maybe, but it's incredibly effective. Jason and Julia suggested narrating your day, just simple things like, okay, I'm making tea now, it's 8 a.m., I have that meeting later. I hope it goes well. You can just think it or say it quietly.
Ah, okay, so it's like warming up your English brain and mouth.
Exactly. It builds fluency in a really low-pressure way and makes speaking out loud less scary when you do talk to others.
Makes sense. And they also brought up the mirror technique. What's that about?
Right, the mirror technique. So literally standing in front of a mirror and speaking English, making eye contact with yourself, maybe even smiling while you talk. The idea is to get your brain comfortable seeing you speak English. It can feel a bit awkward at first, for sure,
I can imagine.
but it really helps build that visual connection and comfort.
Interesting. Like a dress rehearsal for real conversations. Okay, and then there was the one I think many people might resist, recording your voice.
Yeah, that's often a tough one. Hearing your own voice in another language can feel, well, cringy sometimes, can't it?
Definitely.
But Jason and Julia really stressed how valuable it is. Listening back helps you really hear your pronunciation, your rhythm, where you might need work.
Yeah.
But crucially, and this is the confidence building part, it also lets you hear your progress.
Ah, that's a good point. So it's not just about finding flaws, but seeing improvement.
Precisely. Which can be hugely motivating.
And the last tip in this section was about celebrating small wins, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of acknowledging small successes. Maybe you understood a joke in English. Great. You asked for directions and got them. Fantastic.
Yeah.
These little moments add up. And Julia had this brilliant insight. Confidence doesn't come after you're fluent. It comes while you're practicing.
That's key. It grows with the practice, not just at the end.
Exactly.
Okay, so those are fantastic general strategies. But what about those specific real life situations? Ordering food, asking for directions, the ones that often feel high stakes. Did Jason and Julia offer advice for those?
They did, yeah. Very practical stuff. For ordering food, for example, their advice was, keep it simple. Don't worry about complex sentences or perfect grammar. Focus on being clear and friendly.
Right. Communication over perfection.
Exactly. A simple, I'll have the chicken sandwich, please, works perfectly fine. It's clear, polite, does the job.
Good advice. What about asking for directions? That can feel really exposed.
Yeah, it can. They suggested starting politely, excuse me, and definitely use hand gestures if it helps. Don't be afraid to point.
Oh.
And just a simple phrase like, excuse me, how can I get to the train station? Is all you need. Again, clarity and politeness first.
Right. Keep it functional. And what about joining a group chat? That feels intimidating sometimes.
Their tip there was listen first. Just tune in, figure out the topic. Then, when you feel ready, add just a short comment.
Yeah.
Something relevant like, oh, that's interesting. I've never tried that. It shows you're engaged, but it's low pressure.
That's a good entry point.
Yeah. And the main takeaway for all these situations was bravery, clarity, and being kind to yourself matter way more than fancy words or perfect pronunciation.
That's really reassuring to hear. It lowers the bar in a good way, makes it feel more achievable. Now, another thing Jason and Julia really hammered home was the importance of consistent practice.
Oh, absolutely critical. Jason actually shared a personal story about learning French in Paris. He talked about how he kept waiting to feel ready to speak. You know that feeling.
Oh, yeah, I'll speak when I'm better.
Exactly. But his realization was, and I quote him here, I kept telling myself, I'll speak when I'm ready. But the truth is, I was never going to feel ready. I had to speak to become ready.
Wow. That's powerful. You don't wait for readiness, you create it by doing.
Precisely. You have to jump in, even if it feels scary. Confidence is built through action.
And Julia backed this up, right? Saying even small amounts of practice add up.
Yes. She said, if you practice just 10 minutes a day, you're doing more than most people. Which is pretty motivating, I think.
It really is. Consistency over intensity sometimes.
Right. And they suggested lots of ways to get that practice in. Using voice AI apps, which are great now. Watching movies with subtitles on. Talking to pets, kids, yourself seriously. Practicing tongue twisters for pronunciation. Reading out loud.
Lots of options.
Loads. The key is just building that regular habit, that momentum. Don't aim for instant perfection. Just aim for consistency.
Makes total sense. Build the habit and the confidence will follow. Okay, so as they wrapped up, Jason and Julia offered some really lovely words of encouragement, didn't they?
They really did. Some important reassurances for anyone listening who feels this way. First, you are definitely not alone. Millions of learners feel these same fears.
That helps, just knowing that.
It does. Second, you're not behind. Everyone learns at their own speed. It's your journey. And third, crucially, you're not wrong for making mistakes. Mistakes mean you're trying. They're proof of effort.
Such vital reminders. And Jason had that visualization exercise.
Yes, it was really vivid. He asked listeners to imagine walking into a room, speaking English confidently, maybe not perfectly, but confidently, and people listen. They understand you. They smile.
Hmm.
And his point was, that's the power you already have inside. It's about unlocking it, not acquiring something totally new.
That's a wonderful image to hold on to. Really empowering. And Julia's final announcement.
Yes, the confidence muscle. She said confidence is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Simple but effective.
Totally. So her advice was just speak. Speak to the mirror, speak out in the world. But maybe most importantly, she said, speak to yourself with kindness. Be patient with yourself through the process.
That self-compassion piece feels really important.
Absolutely essential.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive really shows that building speaking confidence is, well, it's a journey, isn't it? It's not about flipping a switch and suddenly being flawless. It's about working through those internal blocks bit by bit.
Exactly. So if you've ever felt nervous or stuck or maybe ashamed of mistakes or just self-conscious about how you sound, this is for you. The big takeaway from Jason and Julia seems to be, let go of those fears as much as you can and just speak anyway.
Speak anyway, even if you pause, even if you stumble.
Yes, that's all part of it. It's normal. The key is just to keep going.
And I guess that final thought from them really sums it up. Confidence isn't about knowing every single word.
Right. As I said, confidence doesn't come from knowing every word. It comes from using the words you already know again and again and again.